and welcome to another episode of Promote the Hell Out of It. My name is Miz, and this is the podcast where I chat to people worth shouting about. I have been, as always, I think I say this every time, excited about releasing this episode, but it's true, I have been. And this is a really special one for me, you know, like I came across Shane Brady, who is my guest today, an actor and magician, through Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson's incredible films. Shane is in Spring is the first one I caught him in, although we do have a cool story about Resolution, which is the film that made me discover Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson and then Shane. But I became a fan through that. He kept popping up in their films. The Endless, which is an amazing film, most recently Synchronic. But he also had a role in Dr. Sleep, another film that I love, not related to Moorhead and Benson's releases. So I was excited to chat about everything he's been up to, his mentality coming out of 2020, magic, and then all the cool stories that came up along the way that I really did not expect. There is a bunch of links for you to check out in the bio, so please do. A bunch of films I would recommend checking out, especially if you're into time travel, alternate universes, horror-ish type films, indie films that are really smart. There's some amazing films that Shane's been in. And Shane was just a real cool guy with some real positive energy. I really enjoyed it. Please share this episode around. If you want to support it, there is a link underneath for you to buy me a coffee. That would be amazing. Leave us a review, all that stuff. Check out the links and enjoy this conversation with Shane Brady, because I had a blast recording it. Enjoy. So Shane, I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. It's an absolute honor. How are you doing?
Hey man, it's my pleasure. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a weird year and a bit now, right? But as well as can be expected.
Weird is an absolute understatement, but yeah, weird. It's been weird for everyone, for sure.
Are you where you expected to be right now?
The antithesis of where I expected to be physically, emotionally. Like I'm currently in Florida because of the pandemic. Los Angeles, and I'm not going to steer this anywhere political, but Los Angeles and California is still so shut down.
Yeah.
And the affordability of doing things when you cannot work is too high. So
yeah.
Sneaking down to Florida, and this is where I grew up, so it's home and it's good. You know, I'm trying to turn a negative into a positive. I'm embracing some time to spend with my family and stuff. So
yeah. And when stuff like this happens, sometimes it shows the resilience that people have, especially if you've chosen like creative careers, of how quickly you can think on your feet and adapt to the situation, right?
Well, absolutely, and you know, I'll go on a tangent for a second because I think it's important. I was in Texas, right? So I'm going to be talking, and I'll try to do this in a linear timeline.
It's so good, so good.
Right? So I'm in California. Pandemic hits. It's March. You know, what have you? You know, I booked a couple things at the beginning of the year. Things are like, all right, whatever. We'll take a month off.
Yeah.
Let's embrace it. Let's eat the bad food. Let's drink at night. You know, it'll all be good. It'll all blow over. And then April, and then May, and then everyone's itching like, what are we supposed to do here? So over the summer, I would bounce back and forth between California and Texas, where I sell rainbow home cleaning systems.
Oh.
I sell basically vacuums of the future.
Yeah.
As a way to make money.
Yeah.
And while I was there one day, I was talking to somebody who had no idea that I'm an actor and a creative, and they were talking about how they were sick of all of these people just, you know, suckling on the teat of unemployment in America, and that they love the pandemic and that they're fine with it. And all these actors and artists and all these people, they'll just sit on their ass and collect unemployment. And the point of this story is, in the background on the TV was Hamilton, right? The Disney production where they filmed Hamilton, and it's on Disney Plus, and And I go, oh, you got Hamilton on in the background. And the mom goes, oh, I love Hamilton. It's the best. I've watched it 5 times. My kids watch it. They're obsessed. And I go, so Hamilton is the best of the best of the best that we have right now. It's the best. Everybody loves it. Everyone's going insane. You got to spend $300 a ticket to sit in the nosebleeds, which means they have the best costume designer, which means they have the best set designer, the best lighting designer, the best people taking your tickets, the best people selling you t-shirts. Everyone's groveling to get there. And then the pandemic hits, and all of these ladies and gentlemen are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They have dedicated their livelihood to one art form, which they have perfected, which has fulfilled them, which has sustained a livable income for them and their families in New York. And then they hit a steel wall of nothing.
Yeah.
And everybody just folds their arms and is like, well, they should figure out something to do, but don't get rid of the coal jobs in the middle of Pennsylvania, because we can't have sustainable things. We got to keep the coal. Like, let's save the coal. But everybody else, oh well. So that's my little tangent.
No, it's not. It fits into a lot of what I talk about, and it's funny because the podcast I'm releasing on Monday, conversation I had earlier this week, I said the same thing. There was on the radio someone who'd played support in, I think it was Kaiser Chiefs, so they'd been playing arena tours, and he was on the radio whilst driving a delivery truck around London because the pandemic hit, and all the plans that like a year ago they had, all the tours they'd booked in, like it's all gone. And depending where you are in your career, especially, like sometimes you're on a trajectory to like getting some attention, and if that fades, you're like, oh, I've got to basically start afresh almost.
Correct.
In some ways at least. Yeah, so you mentioned you lived in London for a while.
Yeah. So when I was 20, I was studying at Florida State University, and I saved up money because they have an exchange program where you can study theater, specifically like diction, accents, Shakespeare, in London. So I lived, I want to make sure I'm not lying. I lived on 99 Great Russell Street. My tube stop was Tottenham Court. I was right up the way from the British National Museum. We would play football, American football, not like I know football the correct way. Oh, let me turn off my phone. The correct verbiage across the entire planet is obviously soccer. But us Americans have to take everything for our own. And it was so incredibly wonderful for a million reasons. First of which was I had saved up all this money, and my mom and dad, gave me a little bit of cash to get to London. but I forgot that like once you're in London, you need money to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think the exchange rate at the time, somebody can probably look this up. I think it was $2.65 per British pound. So every time I would spend 1 British pound, I'm actually spending $2.65. And anybody who has been poor in college knows that you're like crying every time you hand it over. So we came up with clever little tricks, which I'm realizing as I say this out loud, people are like, oh, the American dude came into my country and did these things. But what is it? Is it Tesco? Is that the name? Okay. So we would go to Tesco at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And if like a 24 rack of beer fell over and like a can got dinged, or if like a personal pizza had like a rip in the corner, then the grocery store workers walk around and they find the things that aren't, right? They put it in the little discount bin. And so then we would go in, and that's like how I survived, was that and Subway coupons and poor man sandwiches, which was just like peanut butter and banana and stuff like that. But it was the best. I saw, like, you want to talk about energizing your soul. There was a show called The Mask of the Red Death.
Okay.
By Punch Drunk.
Cool.
Site specific theater. And it made all of us want to change our lives. All of us just went, oh, this is what theater is. Where you can, and it's funny to say this now during COVID, but where you can like physically touch the fellow actors, and sometimes actors would bring you into a room and like perform a magic trick for you.
Cool.
And I'm a magician, so it blew my mind, and all of us are leaving like, anything's possible. We got to stay in London, and we have to make art like this.
Is it,
it's
though.
The best.
And London has a weird thing about it, because I think everyone who wants to do music, acting, art feels like they need to be there. It's one of those types of cities, but it's so expensive to be there at the same time that it's like an oxymoron of like wanting to be in the most and it's not always been like that. There's times where London did have areas that were like affordable for artists, and like it's got a great history of that, but yeah, it gets expensive. You touched on the fact that you're a magician, and I'm really interested in that aspect. What came first, your love of acting or magic?
Okay, so it's not like a linear trajectory. It's kind of an amalgamation of things. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but do you see how that index finger is messed up? And there's there's a scar going there.
Yeah.
So when I was 8 years old, I got my finger cut off by a boat trailer. You know, growing up in Florida, there's the way boat trailers work is if this is the car. Those people on the podcast, try to imagine. So on the back of the car, there's like this steel ball that will tow the boat trailer. Well, I had all my Power Ranger toys set up on the back of my uncle's Jeep, and he didn't know that they were on the back of his Jeep. And he usually kept the boat trailer like a little loose, and then he would just lurch the car forward really quickly, and that's what would get the boat off of the wooden blocks, and then we could drive it down to the marina. So he said, go get your Power Ranger toys. And I'm 8 years old. I'm like, okay, good. And I go back there, and one Power Ranger toy was stuck in between the cup and the ball. So I put my index finger in there and made like a come here motion to grab the toy at the same time that he didn't know I was behind the car, and he pulled forward, and it just like peeling a banana, dude. Literally like peeling a banana. The tip of my finger was here.
That's horrible.
Holding on by my skin. So, my physical therapy was doing things like grabbing foam softballs, and then foam baseballs, and then golf balls and popcorn kernels. And at one point, they wanted me to shuffle cards because I have no feeling from here forward.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to like shuffle cards and like try to grab a card and move it from one way to another. And since I was psychotic, I was like, oh, well, I just want to keep doing this and keep practicing this. And it turns out that I'm kind of like a left-handed guitarist in the magician world, because magicians use their right index finger for a lot of their like pulls.
Okay.
Pull cards because they need to feel the sensitive touch between if you're pulling one card or two or three, or et cetera, et cetera. And I have to use my thumb. So like when I auditioned for the Magic Castle, the Magic Castle, they were looking at my weird little deformed index finger. Meanwhile, I'm doing my pulls with my thumb, and they're like, wait, that's actually really cool. I've never seen anybody have to do that. So I had to learn backwards. So I did that. I was into magic. I wanted to play professional hockey, right?
Yeah. I've seen you, Aaron.
Yeah. It probably never would have happened because, you know, I was good in Florida, but you hear like 14-year-olds in Canada. They're ripped from their family and put into a school that just does hockey.
That's it.
But I broke my neck playing hockey at 14.
Ouch. And you were not lucky as a kid, right?
No.
Injuries.
I could go through my list of like surgeries and broken bones and stitches.
Separate podcast.
Separate pod. Yeah, we should do a separate podcast. I'll tell you about the time I got attacked by a monkey in Thailand too. And
nice.
Yeah.
We spent 8 months out in Thailand. Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia.
I've not been to Malaysia, but I love the hell out of Thailand and Vietnam.
Yes, so good.
I know we're but I want to hear why were you there for 8 months? What was your experience? What were you doing?
Just a case of I'll tell you what, we read the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And we were like, yeah, we've always keep putting stuff off. Let's just put our stuff in a locker and go out there and just do it. We had remote jobs, and we were like, let's not tell anyone. Let's just go and see what happens. If we last a month, we'll just come back. We lasted 9 months. And for some reason, we were living out in Barcelona. Our stuff's still in a locker in Barcelona because we did pet sitting for a year in the UK when we got back, and then COVID hit. So our stuff's still out there. It's been 3 years.
Oh my God. I love that though. And I find that when I go to a country where I do not speak the language, where my phone doesn't work, and it's the only time that I really grow. And it's the only time that I really appreciate what I have. You know what I mean? Because Absolutely. it's very simple to like wake up and you're depressed because of COVID and you're like, I gotta be thankful for what I have. But like, I mean, you probably have more stories than me, but I remember there was a morning when I woke up with the sun and I had like an energy drink in my hand and my girlfriend was still asleep, and I was looking out at the street in Kanchanaburi, and there were these people that like just literally live in huts, like literal huts with literal tin roofs. And the smile, Thailand, they call it the land of smiles, right? Or the country of smiles. And everyone is smiling from ear to ear. And some of these people, like their livelihood is they just like sell chicken on the side of the road, or they just, drive their trucks and pick people up from the airport and hope to, tuk them all around. And I don't say this as like I am higher status and they are lower status. I'm saying this to articulate that happiness is a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's when you go to those countries, and the fact that you were there for 9 months, if it was a shit place to be, you wouldn't have been there for 9 months.
They're really cool places, and you're bang on. It's how you learn to see things differently. Yeah. You learn to appreciate things, and you learn to realize that maybe having a 9 to 5 job that you absolutely hate isn't worthwhile. It's better to maybe not have as much money, but do something you love. Like all that kind of stuff comes from just putting yourself in weird situations and seeing the world from a different perspective, right?
Yeah, and you have to, because I'm actually curious, weigh in on this. Do you find that in England, people prefer to stay in their own bubble? Because you guys are like right next door to Germany and France and Ireland, right? And because I know in America, I find that if you go to like Alabama or Texas or Minnesota, like they're still worldly, people will still travel, but you will find more people who are like, nope, I'm good. I never need to leave America. Yeah. I never need to leave this spot. I'm good. I don't need to learn. I don't need to grow. Why would you ever go to Thailand? Don't people get robbed in Thailand? And I'm like,
that you get that a lot. You get that a lot.
And I'm like, wait, everyone in Texas has a gun. Like, that's scary.
The like threat level on like the UK and the US, because we checked it when we went out, was like level, like at the highest level for like terrorist threats and everything.
Yeah.
Compared to like all of the other countries were like the level below. And yet everyone's like, oh, but isn't that dangerous? And you're like, do you realize where we live? Like, I'm not British. I'm from the UK. I'm from Spain, the Canary Islands, Tenerife specifically. But I've lived over here a long time, and I think that I think Britain has a weird perspective. They do travel because it's had a history of traveling and doing some horrific stuff whilst they're at it. But I think there's very much like holiday traveling. Like we go to the nice places, stay in a nice hotel. And I think it's only maybe younger generations that are breaking that mold. Yeah. But yeah, it's difficult to generalize, right? Because there's definitely a feeling of like, you remember the people who have that feeling of, I don't want to go anywhere. Those are the people that stick in your mind. But I've definitely met a lot of people in England who want to travel and love traveling and love every aspect about it.
That's good. That's reassuring.
So yeah, it's a bit more depressing if you read the news. I think if you just focus on how the media portrays things and how they portray other things, it can be quite a gloomy place.
Well, and it's also a thing of I saw this cartoon, or like when you read the newspaper and it's just like a window cartoon, that type of thing. And it was a king and a peasant atop of a castle. And on the fields, there was 10,000 people, and half of them had pitchforks and half of them had torches, and they were coming to storm the castle. And the peasant said, "King, aren't you worried?" And the king goes, "No, all I have to do is convince the torch people that the pitchfork people want their torches."
It's so true.
Right? It's so true. Because so much of the world is based in fear. And I don't just say this, I really don't like talking about politics, because I feel like it like I've never been into politics ever. And I feel like all it ever does is separate people. Like, if a building is burning, no one's going to run in and be like, "Did you vote for Trump?" nope, not gonna happen, right? And also, like, people who vote for Trump aren't all racist white supremacists, but at the same time, everyone who voted for Biden is not socialist and
For
wants to
sure.
live for
Yeah,
free
yeah.
forever, you know? But it's a thing where so much of the media is just fear. That is it, dude.
Yeah.
The thing that keeps people on the TV is the pitchfork people are coming and they want your torch, or the torch people are coming and they want your pitchforks.
And it's weird because it's such an old repeated lie, and it's such an old repeated rhetoric, and it still works. People still like, and we're at a point in history where there's, and we've gone on a massive tangent, I'm aware, but that's part of what a podcast is and why it's nice sometimes, right? Especially at times like these where you need to, like, having conversations with people's nice. Like, you need to chat to people. But yeah, I find it odd, like, that people have access to the internet, know more about history than they ever have, and they still don't cotton on to the fact that we're being had. Like,
which kind of brings us full circle to the beginning of the tangent, which was, if you Google, is Thailand safe? Should I travel there? You will probably get websites that say, no, do not go there. It is dangerous. If you look at reviews on TripAdvisor, you will see fellow people who travel say, it's amazing. Maybe just don't pet the monkeys when you're in Koh Phi Island, and you won't get bit, you know? But it's, yeah, you know what it is. Like, there's a wonderful thing that happens when you don't speak the language, you make eye contact with someone, and the two of you are just trying to figure out how to order food, and they're trying to help you order food, and you're like, I Googled how to say, like, kamsamida, you know, like little things like that. Like, oh, we got there. We did it. Success, you know? And it's like, people just want to be people, man.
That's it.
Okay, so what we were talking about magic. Okay, magic and acting. So I break my neck when I'm 14. I miss basically the entire freshman year of high school. And the only thing I could really do without puking, because I had vertigo really bad and I couldn't really stand up without people helping me. I had wonderful, wonderful friends where, like, each kid got to take a day off of school to just be with me 24/7.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I have fantastic, fantastic friends. And the only things I could really do were shuffle cards, type on a computer, and play guitar. But the thing, when you have a neck brace, you're stuck here. So if you want to turn left, your entire body has to turn left. If you want to look down, you have to, like, lean from your hips.
Terrible for the guitar.
Right? Well, here's the thing. You can't see the guitar, and you can't see cards, and you can't see the keyboard. So because of this, I'm a lightning fast typer, and I never have to look at the keyboard. I can shuffle with the best of them and manipulate cards, and I never have to look at the cards, and I can play guitar, and I never have to look at the guitar.
That's ace.
So
good skills.
Right? Well, like, I teach kids acting in Los Angeles, and whenever kids want to learn how to play guitar, I'm like, look, man, all I did was learn how to play Metallica songs, and I never looked at the guitar. That's it. So pick a band you like, go read tabs, don't look at the guitar, and figure it out.
At least you're not telling them they have to break their neck.
Exactly. Yeah,
break your neck.
Or, like, buy a neck brace and stuff. But yeah, don't break your neck. So this like interesting life change happened to me at such a young age. I was like 15, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I wanted to be a hockey player. And if you can't tell, I love talking and I love telling stories. And so when I was a senior in high school, I kind of floated around just being a kid for a minute. When I was a senior in high school, my buddies were like, you should join the theater group, which I have said this openly before, because of the hockey culture that I grew up in, and I'm going to use the abrasive word, to be a straight man and do theater meant that you were a fag. Not gay, but the derogatory, like, you were a fag, not the cigarette, but a fag, which is a bad word in America, right? And again, I say that sensitively because that is the person I was literally more than half a lifetime ago. You know, I'm 33 now. And I was resistant to that. And the person that helped me breach that was Aaron Moorhead. Me and him became friends, right? Me and him became friends when I was like 15 or so. And when I joined the theater group, I thought he was a theater nerd, And I was like the cool kid who like used to play hockey and was like a mini celebrity because I broke my neck, and I would like drink alcohol sometimes, and I had a beard at a young age. And there was this play called Tales of Trickery where they needed a male storyteller to do all of these different voices. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just talk. And so I was the only person in the play that spoke, and everyone else was puppets behind me. And that's what got me into the fold. I learned that theater and art was this wonderfully inclusive, supportive, helpful, amazing place in which the culture of hockey, which is still wonderful, hockey is us versus them. I think sports are us versus
yeah,
them.
most, yeah.
And whenever it's us versus them, it's very easy to look at the opposition and just spit vitriol and have like mean-spiritedness in your heart. And then when it came to theater, we had, like the little theater competitions that you go to in high school and stuff. And all of the other schools and all of the other shows, everyone was just supportive, man. It was the first time in my life that everyone was just supportive. Of course people want to win, but I saw a high school do Seussical the Musical, and I wept. I wept at this like 17, 18-year-old high school production of Seussical the Musical, which is the dumbest shit ever. And there's a line in the play where there's an elephant bird, and like the elephant sits on the egg. Horton the elephant sits on the egg, and when the bird hatches, it's half bird, half elephant.
Yeah.
And the bird is like, you can teach it land and I'll teach it sky. And I'm like sitting in the back, like covering my mouth, just weeping, being like, that's so fucking beautiful. Like, and I didn't want to be undeclared when I went to college. I still wasn't fully in. I thought I was in. I knew I was in, but again, I was resistant because of my like hidden homophobia. And then I get to college, and there was this wonderful professor there named Guy Molnar, who, and the point of the story is he was a gay professor, and I actually like apologized to him. I want to say like 3 years into college, and luckily I like we only had wonderful experiences, but I remember like watching Milk with Sean Penn and messaging him being like, hey man, I now am realizing that like it's because of you and everyone else in my support system that I realize I inadvertently was like shutting people out. And if someone was different than me, I looked at them and like sneered my nose and was like, that's weird. I don't want to play in that pool of jello, and so that's why when people are like resistant to change or like things are incited with fear, like I see that in myself, from an earlier age, and like art helped that and healed that. And then I've never looked back, and I never looked back, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I went in, 100% at the, but my mom and dad have always been supportive of it to a point because they're like, you should for sure do acting, but like also maybe be a doctor just in case,
Yeah,
like
completely.
Like, do something just in case. And that's not me. So, it's my life and my career since I graduated college has been like a heart monitor, right? Where it's like deep up, really awesome. And then doop, oh, I think I'm dead. And then it levels out and everything's okay. And then doop, 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 So I'm on the way up because COVID was a down deep.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I think it's interesting because it takes loving something to keep at it, right? It takes wanting to do and to your life to be in that trajectory, to have a side hustle and to have another job that enables you to do what you love. Do you think it is what you mentioned, like what happened when you were young and kind of grabbing onto that stuff and it changing you as a person that makes you want to continue to do it, even though economically it doesn't seem always like the first option.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I say this saying that I still have not figured it out. But there's this golden pool of warmth that is touched when you attain it and when you have it, right? Like I have a family dog named Angel that we just had to put down not even a week ago.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
And thanks, man. It's awful because she was only 12 and she just like got cancer, and within 3 weeks,
so sad.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So my mom has been absolutely destroyed, and even my mom is sitting here. My mom, the nurse, who, as she's supportive of me, of course, in the industry, but at the same time, is like, maybe be a nurse or a doctor, right? She's like, what am I doing? Why am I sitting here doing this? Life is too short. I should just quit and like move to here and go do this. And I think that voice is always calling us. And I think that voice is always like, it's like the siren in the water being like, come join me. And I think the people who follow that voice, you will eventually be celebrated for it. And the people who have not followed that voice are sad that they let the joy within them die, that they let the kid within them die. And I think they want it too,
Yeah.
And so that's why it brings me so much happiness in California. After college, I went to Chicago for a couple years, did professional theater, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and I met a gentleman named John D'Aquino. And he went to Florida State University when he was in college, and he has had a very successful career in Los Angeles. And he had just started a school for children to teach them acting. It was like, I'm probably lying, but I think it was like 2 or 3 years old or something. And I had his phone number from when he did a talk back at Florida State. And, like 3 or 4 years had gone by, and I called the phone number. And I went over to his house, and he had an audition the next Thursday and called me and goes, have you ever worked with kids? And do you know anything about improv? And I said, actually, yeah, I just graduated Second City Improv and IO Olympics Improv. And like, I'm a nerd magician that makes balloon animals for kids. And he goes, I know we just met. Is there any way you could like start this improv class for kids? And then I'll be back after my audition and I'll take over. And I was like, sure. And I ended up teaching the whole class because LA traffic, what have you. And I'm oversimplifying, which took forever and was a very complex story. But like over the course of a couple months, he was like, all right, let me bring you in the fold. And so I've been lucky enough that the 8 years that I've been in Los Angeles, I haven't had to serve tables or bartend. I've gotten to work with kids.
That's awesome.
And there's this like really wonderful thing. You know how some people like have never found love, but somehow they're always able to like hook everybody else up.
Yeah,
and, like,
for sure.
Like they have the Midas touch where like everything they touch, it's like everyone else falls in love. That's kind of like me in Hollywood, where like I've been good in Hollywood, but like I'm not a series regular yet. Like Jamie Dornan is way more famous, like like that sort of thing. And but I could rattle off kids' names that are all just like superstar celebrities, and I have been lucky enough, right, to be a little part of them at an early age, being like, hey, Shane, can you coach me for this audition? And then I help them through that audition, and then they book a very big gig, and then they incorrectly come to me and say, thank you, Shane, you did so much to help me get there, which is correct, but like you still need the talent and the acumen and to deliver it in the room. But it is a really, really, really cool feeling to know that I'm always in the fold. I'm always reading scripts. I'm always working on things. Because like, if you want to get better at something, teach it.
Yeah.
You're going to get better, man. Like,
but I think the attitude you've got is also about doing something for the love of it. Like, being able to feel happy when others do well, and being able to actually enjoy that feeling is when you're not only focused on making money, but you're focused on enjoying the journey. And I think it's really important because it gets missed a lot. It's very easy to feel jealous at everything. And that just brings resentment. And then you feel miserable, like doesn't do anyone any good. Nothing's changed to that.
And I say that, and I'll get closer to the mic. I say that I need to take my medicine more than anyone. Because
yeah, me too, for sure.
Right? If you don't think that I've been like, I still play hockey for fun, you know, in beer leagues. If you don't think I haven't like gone to go play hockey and I'm like in the locker room with the boys and I'm like, I just had an argument with a 16-year-old because they don't want to do another season of the show. And they showed up to the coaching in a Tesla. I'm driving this piece of shit. And they're like, I don't want to do my Disney show for another season. It's like, shut up. You're making $22,000 an episode, you punk. You know, like I have for sure had those days at the same time. But, you know, and then you breathe and you play hockey and you get in a couple fights and then you feel better.
That's it. Yeah. You mentioned knowing Aaron Moorhead. I'm interested in, we can skip through this, but I know that you've kind of made fun of it on your website before. The first film, Resolution. What happened there? Because I've seen some clips.
Yep. Okay. So Resolution. I was living in Chicago when Aaron Moorhead filmed Resolution with his writing and directing partner, Justin Benson. This is a little bit of a game of telephone, and he'll probably have to correct me, but it is my understanding that they were both interns at Ridley Scott and Associates. They were not having as fulfilling as a time as they thought they would, which happens to everybody who's an intern. You know, you think you're going to be on set every day and you're driving tapes back and forth and getting coffee, right? Happens to everybody. So Justin Benson had saved up some money and he goes, hey, I want to write this, or I want to film this movie. And he's like, but you know, I need a lead guitarist. So I need Aaron Moorhead, the guy who knows how to be a director of photography and edit it and everything. And Aaron said, deal, but we got to be co-directors. We'll be co-directors. You're the writer. I'm the director of photography. We both direct. Let's try it. If it burns and crashes, no muss, no fuss. We both go back to doing our separate lives. And so at the tail end of them filming Resolution, I want to make sure I'm not lying. At the tail end of them filming Resolution, I believe there was like a pickup shot or a promo that we were shooting. And so I was at that point living in Los Angeles, and I was actually living on Aaron Moorhead's couch. I crashed on his couch for 3 months before I got my own place. And we went there and we shot it, and we had like an hour to kill. And Aaron and Justin were like, what if Shane was in the corner of the movie the whole time? And we just like improv'd this thing of me just like messing around and being like, hey guys, I've been here the whole time. Like, what?
It was really odd. It was really odd. I watched it. It was really cool too.
But like that's also who Aaron and Justin are. You know, I didn't know Justin until I was 25, and the second you meet Justin, he's like, oh, he's also somebody that has just been struggling. He was also studying to be a doctor. If I'm not wrong, I think he like went through medical school.
Oh, wow.
Like legitimately almost done with medical school, and was like, we have enough doctors. Maybe we need one more indie filmmaker. And, you know, he spent his however much money they spent to make the movie, and it went to Tribeca and it blew up. You know, everybody loved it because
without you in it,
right, without me in it, we don't need, especially in today's day and age, 2 white guys we can live with, but 3, come on, right? No, so that's an obvious joke. Everybody, come on, you gotta make fun of yourselves. So it blew up on the indie circuit, but they also they went to every film festival that they possibly could and stayed up until 6 a.m, every single one of them, shaking hands and hanging out and partying and being cool. And that's another way that they made a name for themselves.
Yeah.
Is by hustling. And I'll tell you what, no one has ever had to light a fire under Aaron Moorhead or Justin Benson's ass. Ever. If anything, people are like, bro, do you need some water? Like the engine is running too hot. You got to calm down. So, you know, they go and they do Resolution. And then when they went to film Spring, now that I'm living in Los Angeles, they were kind enough to, I think the way it was worded was they go, we got a little bit of money to go shoot this movie in Italy, but we have to do everything to the T. Like we can't order extra sugar or we're gonna go over budget, right? So they said you're gonna have to fly yourself to Italy, which was fine because it's like, oh, I get to go hang out, right? So I got to go hang out in Italy for like 20 days, but my character only needed to film for like 2 or 3 of them. But the thing is my character was exterior, and we were on the Amalfi Coast in October where it rains all the time. So the thing was, they were like, if SAG knew that you were here for 20 days, we have to pay you for 20 days. So we just have to pretend that you were only here for like 2. And I was like, so I get to hang out in Italy with my friends and just like be the world's coolest production assistant and get you guys whatever you need and eat free Italian food. That sounds like a deal, like that absolutely.
For sure.
Like a deal. Yeah. Have you ever been to Italy?
When I was a kid, like under the age of 3, I can't really remember it. It's definitely on the plans, or we would have probably already gone if it wasn't for last year. But yeah, I actually rewatched Spring this morning before watching this, and made sure I knew who Brad was and what scene it was, which is a very memorable scene. I don't want to spoil it because I'm obviously going to be encouraging everyone to watch all these films.
Okay. Man. Damn.
Because but it looks like such a gorgeous place.
It is a gorgeous place. I kind of want to tell you a little like behind the scenes, but
yeah, for sure. Away. No, it's okay. People will just have to suck it out. They should have watched it by now. Okay, yeah, they should have. Okay, so our makeup gentleman was Dave. I'm gonna forget his last name, but he also done Star Trek and stuff. But his name is Dave. His last name starts with an S. I think it's like Serene or something like that. Italy. He had shipped like 4 boxes to Italy for us to film, and those boxes had like wigs and all these prosthetics and stuff we needed, and they only sent 1 box. They were holding the other 3 at customs because they were like, there's actual human hair in here, and there's some weird customs thing between America and Italy where like you can't ship hair because they think it's drugs or something, again, and like this is a lot of just like yelling in Italian and then saying the English translation to our producer. So he finally gets the boxes. The first like 6 days of filming, he just had to figure it out, and we're having to turn Nadia into a freaking lizard monster half the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like that's another thing. You want to talk about guerrilla filmmaking? You can plan as much as you want, but you become a real filmmaker when your prosthetics aren't there. And how do we make this girl look slimy and like a lizard monster and whatever? You use a lot of soap. But he stayed up all night, literally not sleeping, because the day before we shot the scene where I tried to sexually assault Nadia as she's turning into a lizard monster, I had a cod piece that had an actual prosthetic penis. And he painstakingly was putting pubic hair in this cod piece and painstakingly make it so that the penis could like get ripped off. and the thing is like when we filmed it looked so bad and so absurd. Like it no longer was a scary moment. Yeah. It was just this thing of like, it doesn't work. So it didn't make the movie. And I know like after it came out, Dave is like, I spent 14 hours putting pubic hair in a cod piece for something that didn't go. And he's like, 2 weeks ago, he was like putting makeup on Will Ferrell. But like, that's this industry. You hear about it with stuntmen, don't you? Who do like crazy stunts over and over, and then it doesn't make it. And it's like, it's so gutting. It must be so gutting.
But that's also why when you're in film school, they say you have to have somebody who was not on set edit your movie, because they will be able to see all of the mistakes that you won't be able to see because you were on set and you were like, we finally got the fan to work and the fog machine work, and like the dogs finally shut up and the kid like hit his mark and he didn't hit his mark in the previous 17 takes and stuff. But the editor will be like, look, man, it doesn't work. Sorry, it just doesn't work.
And what about the atmosphere? Especially, you can use the Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson films as an example, but like
Mm-hmm.
the atmosphere of working on a smaller independent film compared to as the budget goes up and the production levels up, does it really change the atmosphere and like the enjoyment of the experience?
Sadly, it does. It does. Well, okay, let me be very specific. It doesn't change the enjoyment of the experience. It's the the whole thing of like one bad apple spoiled the bunch, and
Yeah.
like the reason why we have speed limits is because one person drove 130 miles an hour and crashed into somebody, so
Yeah.
they go, all right, well, now you can't drive more than 45 on that road. So there are unions and laws and rules put in place to protect everybody. And when you are making an indie film, like The Endless is a perfect example, because Aaron and Justin still are directors, and directors of photography and writers, but there are also many times where they are in front of the camera. So when they're in front of the camera, the majority of the work fell on David Lawson, and sometimes it would fall on myself or other people in the crew to like, hey, can you just help for a second move these lights, or help for a second grab this, or we're at the bottom by the campfire, Shane, can you just run to here, grab the sharp thing, bring it down, like everyone on that crew was amazing, but like Kira Powell and Tate Ellington from The Endless, we started making fun of Tate Ellington towards the end because of how amazingly helpful that dude was. And he had like just left his like very big deal show. He got killed off of his very big deal show, and he's here making $125 a day on The Endless,
So
just
cool.
constantly being like, hey guys, do we need this light to go over here? And my beautiful wife and I just, we brought our kid, and we bought apple pie for everybody. So, everyone enjoy. Like Tate, I freaking love that guy. But so it's this family feel and this feeling of accomplishment with The Endless. And then we go to shoot Synchronic, and we're trying to have that same feel. And I go to New Orleans. I'm there for a couple days filming my thing where I get to take drugs and die. And Aaron and Justin were like, hang out for the week. Like they call me their good luck charm. They're like, just hang out for a week, be on set. You're a fun presence, do a magic trick if people are in a bad mood, whatever. Right. But when I'm there, I'm trying to help art department, and I'm getting yelled at because I'm not part of the art department union. And if I physically affix something to the wall with tape, and Anthony Mackie walks by it and trips on it, and the tape blinds him and he stabs himself in the eyeball, they can't protect that because me, Shane, the guy that's not part of the art department, hung up a poster with tape. Furthermore, I can't physically hand Jamie Dornan a beer bottle with the plastic on top before a scene, because what if I poisoned him? I'm not a part of the props unit. So then I'm like, okay, what if I can help just bring this cart from here to there? Well, no, you're not a Teamster. You can't do that. Okay. Wow. What if I can just help like put the cake down? Well, you're not part of Food and Crafty, and this is food. You can't, and you got to make sure you're all sterilized and everything. So it was this thing where, how do I explain it? You're probably going to have a better idea of how to explain what I'm saying, but like my friends they have grown up. They're now in this realm where their movies are now millions of dollars instead of tens or hundreds of thousands, and the baby bird can get its own food now. You know what I mean? Like that thing of
no, for sure.
And that's a horrible metaphor. That makes it sound like the only way that they've ever done anything is me. That is not the intention here. That is not the intention. But like I've always gotten to be hands-on and be helpful. And then on Synchronic, I was just there for another 4 days, just kind of like doing a really good job of telling jokes by the coffee, Yeah.
And so I guess everyone's busier, everyone's got more to do. So it's less like, it's weird stuff like that, because you're always trying to, I play in like punk bands and stuff, and I find that it's always like that scenario of the friends I've got in bigger bands are always complaining about the lack of freedom they've got and how it's not as enjoyable. And then if you're playing punk rock to 200 people at a show, you're not making enough money. So you're always kind of chasing that kind of feeling of being somewhere where the feeling is right and it feels good and it's enjoyable, whilst at the same time trying to progress, and that feeling's easily lost. It's a really weird kind of line to try and find.
I think that's why, I think there's a saying in Hollywood, if I'm not butchering it, that's like, do one for them and one for you. Like, you know, if you're Jim Carrey, fart and chase the penguins down the hill, but then do your movie that fulfills you artistically, like Eternal Sunshine, you know?
It's true. Yeah, I love Eternal Sunshine. But it's sad to think that he wasn't enjoying that.
Right.
Damn it, you've ruined that whole film for me.
Sorry.
So let's talk about incorporating magic into acting. Do you now go out trying to find roles that have a magician, or does it sometimes get written for you because you can already do magic?
I guess both. Here's the main thing about Hollywood that I really try to articulate to people, and I really try to explain. Hollywood is this amorphous blob that is constantly changing colors and shapes and sizes and textures. And the second you look at it and go, that is a triangle made out of steel, you wake up and you search for the triangle made out of steel, and it is a cactus-shaped balloon now. You know what I mean? Things are always changing. Always, always, always. So when it came to The Endless, Aaron and Justin had been spending 2 years trying to make their next feature, where they would go and have meetings, and people would say, we love your work. We would like you to direct our films. And Aaron and Justin would say, we would like to direct our own films. And it was like this very respectful thing where it's like, okay, well, you know, we'll see you soon. And so they ended up making The Endless, being like, all right, well, we'll just do it ourselves again, you know? And so in that case, Justin and Aaron said, all right, what weapons do we have at our disposal, right? They knew they had me. They knew they had David Lawson. They knew they had a location. They knew they had a couple of things. And then you figure it out from there. Yeah. It's kind of like how Dr. Seuss wrote Green Eggs and Ham and became successful because his buddy said, I bet you can't make a book using only 50 words and have it be a bestseller. So the other thing with Hollywood is you have to have things that will create distinction. You must. Like, if you go on my IMDb, there's not much there that's just like me, Shane, the actor. I'm usually the guitarist, the hockey player, or the magician. So when I got my first theatrical agent, and you'll hear tens of thousands of versions of this story. There was a person who was getting interviewed to be a part of that agency. I'm no longer with them, so I'm just going to call it the agency. And you can hear through the walls because all of California is made out of fucking plywood. Like, you can hear through every wall at every audition or meeting you have ever been in. And the agent said, I'm so sorry. We have too many of your type. We just don't need another like mid-aged Caucasian guy. Like, you know, it's like, it's fine. That's what it was. So I'm like sitting there going, well, I'm a mid-aged Caucasian or like mid-20s Caucasian guy. So when I went into the room, they said, tell us a little bit about yourself. And for some reason, the first words out of my mouth were, well, I know you probably have a million guys like me. You don't need another, you know, athletic build, mid-20s Caucasian guy. But if anything lands on your desk that is hockey, magic, guitar, put me in there and I'll book it. And they were like, huh? I was like, I played hockey my whole life. I played guitar my whole life. And I'm an expert up close sleight of hand card magician. So if any of those things land on your desk, put me in them and I'll book it. And the first things I booked in Hollywood were Go On with Matthew Perry as a hockey player, The Crazy Ones with Robin Williams as a guitarist, Kickin' It, a Disney show as a magician, an Old Dominion commercial as a hockey player. Like, everything I booked had nothing to do with acting for the first like 2 or 3 years. But that is such an important distinction that you have to make. Anyone who is trying to start out in Hollywood, you need to understand that you are going to the casino and you are gambling. So to be upset that you have been sitting at a slot machine for 5 hours and you haven't won anything, and somebody sits down next to you, puts in one nickel and wins the car, that's what Hollywood is. So, it's very easy to get upset. You're like, well, that's not fair. I've just pumped 10 grand into this slot machine and I've been sitting here for 5 hours and I got nothing. Sometimes it's the luck of the draw, like me being friends with Aaron Moorhead. And so he's friends with Justin Benson. And then he writes me a role in The Endless because he knows I do magic. you know?
Yeah.
But then when it comes to Dr. Sleep, see, this is another thing that's going to get people. I'll tell you how I got Dr. Sleep, and people are going to be upset, being like, "Well, how?" Oh, let me know if the audio gets bad for a second. There's a lawnmower.
Yeah. It's all right. See, it's gone now.
So with Dr. Sleep, things were not going the best for me, and so for my 30th birthday, I put on a suit and I got 24 dozen donuts. And I drove to the bottom of Santa Monica and I mapped out going to 24 different casting agencies. And I tried to get into their office and deliver donuts and say, my name is Shane. You don't know me. Hockey Magic Guitar. Here's my resume. I've done a lot of big deal things. And I would love to work for your office.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you called me in. Some agencies some casting places had casted me before, so it was nice to like refresh them and stuff. But the funny thing is I only got into 21 offices, and of those 21 offices, 7 of them gave me wonderfully warm reception, and they were like, that's a really cool thing, and happy birthday, and thank you for the donuts. We're like, yes, we'll take your resume, looking forward to it. The other 7 were like, who are you? What is this? Nah, donuts. No. Does anyone want donuts?
Who doesn't want donuts?
All right, you can leave them. You can leave the donuts. Who cares? And the other 7, like, just like you would hear, are like, get out. Who are you? We don't want your donuts. No, we don't. No, we don't want. This isn't how it works. No, you get your agent to book you. Get out of here. I for sure cried like 3 times that day.
Oh, dude.
So as it pertains to Dr. Sleep, engine casting. Yeah,
wait
it's
for
bad
that,
now, isn't it? Yeah, wait for it. So engine casting, the ladies at engine casting are absolutely incredible. If every casting agency was like the ladies at engine casting, Hollywood would be the wonderful place that I was explaining earlier when like I went to college and learned what it was like to have like inclusive, happy people wanting to make art. Like that is what those ladies are. Morgan, Mish, Kelly, and they're awesome. So I go to drop off donuts for them. It was like super, super quick. They were one of the what I perceived as like, oh, donuts, yeah, sure, okay, nice. Like, sorry, we're just busy. We're doing casting. Thank you so much, right? And Kieran Foy, who is a friend of mine, who is a director in Hollywood, did a movie called Eli that the girls at Engine Casting casted. And so I was reaching out to Kieran and I was like, hey, man, not for nothing. I'm trying to get some work. Do you know of any casting people? And he goes, oh, let me put you in touch with the girls at Engine. And I was emailing back and forth with this girl, Morgan, there for jokingly, I think it was like 2 months where they were like, yeah, come over. We're too busy. All right, come see us. We're so sorry. Too busy. And then she emails me one day and goes, hey, there's a project I can't tell you about, but I remember you saying you're a magician. Do you want to come audition to be this magician? And I was like, great. She was like, awesome. We'll put you towards the end of the day. That way you can audition and we finally can like just chat for a second because we know that we've been trying to get a hold of you. So I go there and there are, I knew through the grapevine that they were obviously, if you've seen Dr. Sleep, there's this rabbit production trick, right?
Yeah.
Where like nothing in the hat, da-da, now there's a rabbit. And I do not own a rabbit. I had never done that trick before. And so, you know what? When we're done, I need to send you the video of me practicing this trick.
Do it,
the night before my audition, because my roommate came home drunker than I've ever seen him. And there's a video of me practicing my trick to him, really drunk. It's really
amazing.
Fun.
Yeah, I want to see that.
So I go in there and the sides were just like 2 lines, right? It was just like a page. And I don't know what movie it is. No one's telling you it's the sequel to The
You still don't know.
Right? I don't know. I don't know if it's a comedy. I don't know if it's a drama. I know nothing. I just have a piece of paper that says there's a magician at a 4-year-old's birthday party, which, by the way, are most auditions. It is exceedingly rare that you get the whole script. Most auditions, especially the big deal movies, you know it's a big deal movie or TV show when they don't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And you're like, I have no context. So I had a stuffed bunny, a hat that was too small, and I brought like fire and balloon animals and my card tricks and stuff. And I walk in there and I never met them before. And I go, very respectfully, I was like, hey, ladies, I don't know how to do these sides because like I've done a bunch of kids' parties as a magician. The only way I know how to do this is to do it like I literally am at a 4-year-old's birthday party. So if you will just humor me, can I audition just like going for 2 minutes. Just let me throw in my riffraff. Let me do what I like. Just give me, and they're like looking at each other, but they're smiling. They're like, go ahead, do whatever you want. So I do whatever I want. I improv the whole thing. I just make sure that I cue the girl in, like, oh, here's the rabbit. There you go. You get the rabbit. Happy birthday, yada, yada. They had me do a take 2. Then they had me do a card trick. No callback, no nothing. Like 3 weeks later, I get the email saying I got the gig. So this is where it gets tough, because as a magician, and I'm going to speak nerd here for a second, you're going to know what I'm saying. As a magician, you have, there's 4 levels. There's what is difficult becomes easy. What is easy becomes reflex, and the level above reflex is magic. That is how I was trained. There's an excellent magician named Jason Byrne who really like taught me that you Byrne, Jason Byrne. He headlines at the Venetian. He's a really good buddy of mine, and he's helping me with this next movie I'm doing.
Oh, cool.
He's a brilliant magician. He's also a builder. Like, he knows how to build all this gimmicks and stuff. So I'm talking to everyone I know at the Magic Castle, which is a venue in Hollywood where the best magicians in the world gather. And I'm reading books and I'm talking to Jason. And the main thing that they say is they go, you got to practice with the rabbit as much as possible. And you have got to practice with the hat as much as possible. And you have got to practice with the table you're going to be using as much as possible. And you have to know where the camera's going to be, because you can't, like, as a magician, you can't just get thrown into something and expect to do it well and effectively, because you need to like mess with your tools, you know, like even a good chef, if you just threw him in a kitchen and gave him plastic knives, it would take him a second, right? Yeah. So, and again, forgive me, I'm speaking nerd, but so the weeks leading up to me getting flown to Atlanta to film this movie, I'm like talking to production going, is there any way I can talk with the director? Is there any way I can talk to wardrobe? Like, can I know how big the hat is? Can I know what I'm wearing? Can I know what the table is going to look like? Can I know how big the rabbit's going to be? And everybody, as kind and wonderful and delightful as possible, is like, we're so sorry. It's just, there's a million moving parts and the director is incredibly busy. We will try, but we just don't have answers for you yet because we don't know. Because in a lot of these movies, like, they're not worried about the asshole magician that's in the movie for 90 seconds. They're worried about making sure Ewan McGregor is like, okay, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I remember talking to Aaron Moorhead about it and being like, what do I do? And he goes, you have to understand that you're kind of like a stunt guy. Like, what do you mean? He goes, the stunt guy doesn't go to the director and is like, hey, when I fall out of the car, do you want me to like fall in a barrel roll? Do you want me to fall like feet first? It's like, dude, just fall and make it safe and fall out of the car safely. So that way we can get Ewan McGregor's close up, you know, like that's the deal. You have to know where you fit. Like in chicken soup, some people are the onions, right? So I do not get the hat or the rabbit or the table until the day of filming. So I show up and I get to see my hat. Well, that's a lie. I got to see the hat for like maybe 10 minutes during my wardrobe test. And I was like, okay, I know how big the hat is, but we have no idea about the rabbit. We have no idea about the table. They're like, well, we might have you use a table. We might have you use a chair. So I show up to set and Mike Flanagan is the coolest guy on the planet, only superseded maybe by Trevor Macy, who produced that movie. Those guys are amazing, amazingly kind. They deserve every bit of good joy and goodwill and good juju that they have gotten. The fact that Haunting of Hill House is blown up, it is so well deserved. It is insane. Good things happen to good people. So I, with terror in my soul, am like, okay, it's a $50 million movie and I've never done the thing. But also in my audition, I didn't do their sides. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just improv'd the whole thing. So now I'm like, well, do I go to Mike Flanagan who wrote the thing? like I haven't gotten to talk to the dude yet. You know what I mean? And so I'm there on the day being like, I don't know how to do the script, because the only way I knew how to do it was to do it like if I'm at a 4-year-old's birthday party And so I'm sitting there being like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired and I'm going to get found out so quick. So they go, okay, we have 4 bunnies for you to choose from. I'm like, great. Okay, good. 4 bunnies. I go over to the bunnies and the bunnies are bigger than NFL footballs. They're these like special breed of bunnies. They're like these dwarf bunnies. And the lady didn't know that the bunnies were going to be used for a magic trick. She just thought that like they just need bunnies for a 4-year-old's party just to be a bunny. She goes, here are the 4 bunnies, but these 3 are really aggressive and they like bite and claw a lot. So
there's one.
Right? Yeah. So it's really just this one, which was the biggest of the 4. And when you put it in the hat, like here, I'll use this like bag. Like when you put it in the hat, it was like this. It like did not fit at all. And Mike comes over to me and I'm like trying to like make a gimmick with all my different stuff. And he looks at the rat and he's like, or the rabbit, and he's like, that is the biggest goddamn rabbit I've ever seen. And I was like, dude, I think our magic trick just became a camera trick. And he's like, I got cameras, you got tricks, we'll figure it out. So that was one thing that like finally made me calm down, which makes him a good director, you know, because you hear stories of some people being totalitarians being like, we flew you to Atlanta and I want that rabbit to come out of the hat, right?
Make the rabbit fit.
Yeah, make the rabbits fit, make it work. And so then literally seconds before filming, like maybe 90 seconds before filming, I'm standing there and I was like, okay, cool. So Mike, remember my audition, how I didn't do anything that you wrote? And he was like, oh, no, yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead, do whatever you want. And I was like, so really? Good. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll just film you. Do whatever you want. And the script supervisor very nicely comes over to me and is like, could you try to do whatever you want the same time every time? so that way we have continuity. And, you know, we ended up doing it and it was great and it was amazing. And then the other little story I want to say that makes Mike Flanagan such a wonderful guy is I'm done by lunch, right? I'm done. Typically that means good, great, wonderful. You're going to get put in a car, brought back to the hotel. And he goes, hey, you're done at lunch, but don't go anywhere. I want you to hang out on set, hang out in Video Village.
Nice.
Like you're, so he threw me a bone. And so I got to sit there on set for the rest of the day. He was like, anytime crew starts getting in a bad mood, do a magic trick for him, you know, or something like that. So I'm like doing magic tricks in between takes for some people. Cool. And here I got it in this room. So my grandfather was obsessed with Stephen King.
Yeah.
Obsession is actually probably too weak of a word, right? He was obsessed with Stephen King. And so if he knew, he passed away well before this, sadly, but if he knew that like I was in a film in the Stephen King universe, he would lose his mind. So I was telling this to Mike around lunchtime. And so he ensured that a script was printed with my name on it. And at the end of shooting that day, he said, for Grandpa George, best wishes, shine on, Mike Flanagan.
That's so cool.
Right? Because, you know, in the Shining universe, no one ever dies. They shine on if they have the ability. Yeah. And it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And I, you know, and that's the thing, you know, when you look at my career thus far in this industry is it's kind of like a drug. Like I've never taken hard drugs, but it's kind of like sugar, I guess, where like you're always chasing that wonderful feeling, you know? Yeah. You're always chasing that wonderful, wonderful feeling. And when it's not that, it makes the sadness that much more sad because you know what life could be.
Yeah. Yeah, in music you call it post-tour blues. Like the tour finishes and then it's depressing and you're like, what do I do?
And everyone gets sick too, right? Like after tour, everevery like physically gets sick.
That's
you're
just because
you
got
a cold for a couple days.
Smoke more than you ever do, and you don't sleep. So like, And I talked to someone from the band Violent Soho. Will be the episode before this, an Australian rock band, and he was like, and you talk to everyone louder than you ever do. You like shout over the music to your mates all night long. Yeah. You get home and your body just goes, nah. I'm not having any of it.
Yeah. Your body is like, Misael, give us water, please. Yeah. It's called water.
Sleep.
You need water.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and keep the podcast around the hour length, but there is one more thing I want to touch on.
Sure.
I know you do the charity cause. Is it Comedy for Comedy for cause, is that
comedy
right?
for a cure. Yeah,
Comedy for a cure.
So it's no, go ahead.
No. I was interested in it. I was interested in what it involved because I knew you were planning to do a marathon at one point, and if the plans had managed to go ahead with what COVID, like all that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's really awful because of COVID. Everything has just gotten derailed. So I feel like it was over here somewhere. I don't know. So I'm friends with a gentleman named Jim O'Hare. He plays Jerry, Larry, Gary on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
And he brought me into the fold with TSC when I was new in Hollywood, and I thought it was going to be this like fancy schmancy red carpet thing, and then just like we were talking about going to Thailand, I got hit with this slab of reality where it was this charity event, and you hear about tubular sclerosis and how it affects a lot of infants. And they're with it their whole life. And some can be so severe that, you're 25 years old, but you still have the mentality of a 3-year-old. And some of it can be you're working and no one knows you have it. Right. Yeah. Which is what makes it so tough. But I went to this charity event, and then like 6 months later, I auditioned to be the voice of their cartoon that they were making and their comic that they were making. And so in my audition, I said like, hey, this is Shane Brady auditioning, and I just want you to know that I've actually been to these events, and this is a little near and dear to my heart. So I hope that you appreciate my audition. And they picked me because they liked that.
Nice.
And since then, I've always felt humbled, actually, that they have me be a part of it, because like this is how I feel. And it's also true that like, I am not a celebrity. I am not Jim O'Hare. I am not Jane Lynch. I am not these big deal people like Kate Flannery that they bring in, and Mo Collins and Alex Scooby and all these wonderful people that actually have pull. I'm just kind of like the fun magician that donates trips to the Magic Castle, and I'll pick up the tab for dinner. Because all these people that go to these events are exceedingly wealthy, because that's the point, right? You want to raise money for the tubular sclerosis foundation. And so the one thing that rich people can't do is get into the Magic Castle, because you get in there. So that's why I was like, all right, you want to go, you got to pay money for it. But it's all been virtual now. It stinks, man. It really stinks. COVID is rough because it has highlighted, the financial struggles of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's not just TSC, it's everything that is really dependent on these awesome fundraisers.
Yeah.
But also the fundraisers, it's a great excuse to like make balloon animals for kids, and everybody gets together and like eats corn on the cob, and you get to go enjoy the sunshine for a day. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, man.
It was really cool. It's one of these things where you ask someone to come on the podcast for one reason, and then you research a bit and you find all these interesting things, and the podcast, the hour goes and you haven't even touched on half the stuff that you were planning on. But there's and I'd definitely be up for chatting again. I think there's a lot more that we could chat about. I wanted to ask also about Burning Up on VHS, because it seems funny. But yeah, it's always really nice to talk to people who enjoy what they do. You've mentioned that like you don't consider yourself a celebrity, but to people that pay attention, like it's about inspiring. And I think that, to me, I've learned to maybe pay less attention to big celebrities and start paying attention to people that make you want to do stuff, right? To people who are doing things because they love it. And that's why I like paying attention to these small films and the people within them. And like conversations like this encourage people to do stuff they want to do and that they love doing. And sometimes that's hard work, right? It's not easy all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, I appreciate the hell out of that. I really do. And I'm not just saying that because it's a sentence you're supposed to say at the end of something like this. I do appreciate the hell out of that. And I would be more than happy to come on and talk more about stuff, because I feel like we've just scraped the surface. But I think if anyone is out there wanting to start something or get into the arts, you're going to know what I mean when I say this. It's a mindset. You cannot say, oh, I'm trying to become an actor, or I'm trying to make a movie, or I'm trying to get better at this. It's like, no, are you trying to quit smoking, or are you not a smoker?
Yeah.
Right? If someone's not a smoker and you offer her a cigarette, they go, oh, no, thanks, I don't smoke. You know, if someone is trying to quit and you offer them a cigarette, they're like, I'm trying to quit, but they still identify as a smoker.
Yeah.
As where if you talk to somebody who's trying to make it in Hollywood, the first thing they will come up with is excuses. As where if you talk to somebody who is a creative, they will always be talking about the things that they're working on.
That's it.
Because it's who they are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Change the mindset, and I say that as someone who needs to take his own medicine all the time, because like I said, I have my days.
We need constant reminding. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
that's
like
why
motivation is bathing. Yeah. Motivation is bathing. You're supposed to do it daily.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I started this podcast, because I forget it all the time. And I need to have conversations like this to be like encouraged to keep going and to keep at it. Right.
Yeah.
Shane, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want people to go check out?
Yes. Okay. So there's two things. There is a film called King Knight that I will be in at some point this next year. It's directed by Richard Bates Jr. His father, who's a wonderful, incredibly awesome guy, just passed recently. Oh. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll email you. I think there's a little like he worked for Warner Brothers, so I think there's like a little commemorative thing going on. But Richard Bates is the kind of Sticky Ricky is the coolest guy ever. If you want to just be complimented for an hour, go hang out with Ricky Bates. He just does nothing but compliment you. So that film is called King Knight. I filmed it like 2 years ago. It'll be coming out sometime this year. It's another indie guy movie. Nice. We filmed in 10 days. But I also want to plug, everybody needs to probably a year and a half from now watch Moon Knight, because Aaron and Justin are directing a couple episodes of that.
I saw. I'm excited.
Right. And that so like we're talking about Synchronic and how like I can no longer help. I know nothing about Moon Knight. I know nothing, because Aaron and Justin just live in terror of like, oh, we're in Marvel's world now. And anytime they're sent anything, it's like crypto, password, everything protected and stuff.
No, it's been absolutely ace chatting. I'm excited. I've been taking notes. Anything you've mentioned, I'm going to go check out. The people you've mentioned, those films for sure.
Cheers.
And I will send you a link. I'm going to click stop recording, because I think we've said goodbyes. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It was so fun to record. Thank you so much to Shane for coming on. Check out all the links underneath. There's some amazing films coming up that you should be aware of, and films that you probably want to watch, especially if you've listened to this whole conversation and have missed any of the films we talked about. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Leave us a review. Tell your mates. I really like hearing from you. Thanks to everyone who's got in touch in the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you're thinking of starting your own podcast, there's a link for Buzzsprout. That's what I use. If you go through that, it helps us out. That's amazing. There's a link to buy me a coffee. And yeah, catch you real soon.